February 19th, 2025. Yesterday I wrote about my early efforts in Death Valley over a decade ago. I thought of my past photos. Flooded salt flats, clearing storms, golden light on the peak of sand dunes, and questioned if, given the same conditions, I would put forth the same effort now as I did back then. I certainly hope so, but I also recognize that much of my motivation back then was because all of this was still so new to me. Sometimes I wonder if I still have it in me to create images like I did so long ago. So it's still a little ways before sunrise. This is just a safety photo to test out the composition just in case, for whatever reason, the light doesn't do anything fancy. But I got up pretty early this morning. I saw that there's some clouds in the sky. And I knew that there's this area with this desert holly bush set up against the Panamints. And so I drove down here, found it in the dark, set up my camera. It's a really calm morning. And I have no clue if these clouds are going to light up. But, you know, there's a hint of color on the clouds out to the east earlier. But if they do, that's great. If not, I just get to enjoy the morning out here and do a little scouting for the rest of the day. But just so incredibly quiet out here. So we'll see what happens. A little more texture in the clouds now. I think the light was blocked when there'd be a ton of color early on. But this a little closer to, well, I mean, it's after sunrise, but this a little later sunrise light's actually kind of nice. The clouds, for whatever reason, remind me more of summertime clouds. Just a little poofy clouds as opposed to the long wispy clouds. I'll probably be getting light hitting the top of the mountains here pretty soon, assuming it's not getting blocked. And so I'll just keep shooting at the various windows of light and see what happens. I have a 2-stop soft grad. Beautiful light. Should also mention it's perfectly still right now. All right. This has been a great morning. The light's getting a little harsher. Now there's more emphasis on the mountains and less on the clouds, which is not a bad thing. I'll probably do one more sheet. The main reason is that I have one more sheet. I will need to do some loading of film this morning. The question is when to expose this last sheet. The top telescope peak right now is a little bit of cloud on it. Well, I just finished making my final exposure, and it's kind of interesting because the ridge line of the mountains is now in shade from some clouds, and the light is hitting just the middle part of the mountains. And a little bit earlier when I was making my exposure, the area of light was a little bit higher up, and it's interesting because it builds this sense of depth, because typically warm colors tend to move forward, cool colors tend to recede. So it was really pulling at those mountains, pulling those warm tones closer, and then pushing back the ridge of the mountains and then the sky. So it'll be interesting to see how this looks on film. I have a version both with the very top ridge line in sun, and then I have this version with the light down a little bit lower. And this might balance a little bit better with this desert holly bush here, because I have this desert holly bush a little bit more in the lower right corner, kind of central, but a little bit lower right. But now the light is extending far off to the right. So I don't know. We'll see. At first, earlier this morning, when I saw the clouds, I saw that they were a little bit off to the left and just halfway in my composition. I thought that might be a bit of an issue, but as the sun started hitting the mountains, I think it really put attention back on the mountains again and a little bit less on the clouds. But in any case, it is fantastic to expose some film today. When I came out here this morning, it was pitch dark. I used my headlamp to get focus on the desert holly, and this is nice. So I'll certainly be loading some film today, and we'll see what happens with these clouds. I may very well end up doing some exploring, but this is pretty good.
After spending a couple hours loading film, I write this now from the side of the road, some 30 miles south of Furnace Creek, watching the morning light dance among the Panamint Range, dappled by splendid morning clouds, layer upon layer of light, with calm wind. So to answer my question from yesterday, do I still have the drive to capture images like I did during those early years? Unequivocally, yes. But the energy doesn't come from within. It's an external force, created by witnessing beautiful moments in truly special places.
Well, it is going on 3 o'clock, and after taking the photo this morning, I took some time to load film, which takes a long time. But I've come to enjoy it because it forces me to just stay in the same place for a while and relax a little bit. You can't let your mind wander too far because you got to keep track of what you're doing, but it was actually kind of nice. And there was a lot of clouds, as you saw at sunrise, and the good sort of clouds, wispy, puffy sort of clouds that were able to catch some light. They built in a bit more during midday, but now those clouds are really fading away. So I came here to this area where there are these boulders that are out on this alluvial fan. And I really like the look of this sort of pinkish looking boulder. It's a bit of a conglomerate. There's all kinds of rocks within it. And I think it's fascinating that this boulder tumbled down from those mountains and was washed down this alluvial fan over however many, perhaps tens of thousands of years, if not more, just maybe a little bit at a time in a very extreme weather event. But the mountains back behind it have some really interesting colors. There's a bit of clouds there now, but I suspect those clouds are going to be completely gone by the time we get to sunset. That's generally they're trending away, but there are some clouds I see further up north, and who knows, sometimes things start drifting as we get closer to sunset. So we'll see. I have no real huge expectations for this, but it gives me something to do today, and sometimes just being out in the light and seeing these mountains in the evening light will give me ideas for perhaps another photo if this one doesn't work out. I still plan on taking a photo just so I can see how the composition looks, but I don't know. We'll see. The wind's been pretty calm. There's a little breeze right now, but it's been very calm today, which is quite nice. But I got some time to kill, and it's gonna hang out and watch the clouds go by, and the jets go by, and the clouds go bye-bye. We'll see. So it is just after 4:30, and I've got maybe, 20 minutes or so until the sun drops back behind the mountains out to the west. There's a little bit of high clouds there, so the sun's going to pass through a little bit of clouds, but there's not a ton of clouds out to the west. So this is a sort of day when usually we have some pretty good light on the mountains as the sun kind of passes in that gap at the last little bit. But I have a 2-stop soft grad filter loaded, and the window of light that I'm looking for is when the foreground is in shade. So we simplify the foreground a little bit. The mountains in sun, and if any of those clouds stick around through sunset, they would also be illuminated by sun. So you have this kind of warm, cool thing going on, and we'll see how that goes. I did use a little bit of rear tilt in order to enlarge the boulder that's already quite large in the foreground, just to help things balance a little better. And I use a little bit of front tilt to adjust the plane of focus, so the boulder out to the mountains will be in focus. But we'll see how it goes. And then if I'm able to get that photo with the mountains lit up, the next window of light is, again, if these clouds stick around, there's a chance that they could light up really nice after sunset, and then the foreground and the mountains all in shade. But again, I've got about 20 minutes or so, and then the foreground will plunge into darkness, which sounds really ominous. So we shall see. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do an exposure here. 1 second, f45, mountains and sun, foreground and shade. I'll do more of these too. This is probably not the best light. Hopefully the shadows start climbing and diffuse a little bit as it goes up. One second. F45. Now there's more clouds to the south and to the north, but also those areas don't have light hitting the mountains right now. So just in this little area, there's some nice light hitting the mountains. So while having more clouds would be nice, it also can have an impact on the light. Let's see how this light continues to evolve. The color is kind of faint, so I don't even know how it's going to look. That may have been my best window there, but the light down the, or I should say up the valley is definitely a lot stronger. Get another holder ready just in case, but I really don't want to shoot another sheet. So yeah, color is definitely really popping up the valley. Just a little over here. I think I'm good with what I have. But the beauty of this is that the wind is absolutely calm right now. Tomorrow's forecast is for mostly sunny skies, but with wind. So it might be a day to explore. Bat flying by. The desert comes alive at night.
The photo I took that evening fell short of my expectations, but I had a feeling that would be the case. There's little subject interaction between the foreground and background. something that could have been solved with an even higher camera position. Even so, I'm convinced this location has potential, and it's worth revisiting on a future trip. I exposed 6 sheets of film on the sunrise that morning, creating somewhat of a time-lapse progression. Although several of the images would have worked just fine, it was the final sheet of film I liked the most, the one with the most dramatic light. I like how the snow-capped peak is in shadow, and the lower portion of the mountain is spotlit with warm light. It balances well with the desert holly in the lower right, which is quite impressive given the fact that I composed this photo in darkness well before sunrise. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you around next time. You may have noticed this video has no ads and no sponsors, and I think it's nicer that way. If you enjoy this ad-free and clickbait-free content and want to help me live my dream, a voluntary contribution through PayPal or by joining my Patreon helps keep my gas tank full and my film freezer stocked. You can find more information by visiting my website at benhorne.com/donate. I also have prints, ebooks, and my annual portfolios available on my website. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you around next time.